Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back. Trust. What makes a trust foreign and what makes it domestic? Someone's mere discernment of what they think foreign or domestic is not what qualifies something as being foreign or domestic. Several factors determines it. First is the predominant intent of how that entity that you're using was designed to exist, and two, how you use that entity. Meaning every entity has its own status, but the activities or the performance of how you use that entity changes its status. It's like saying you're a virgin, but you go ahead and engage in a sexual intercourse. You cease to become a virgin at that point. It's just that simple. In the past, we went over 508 entity and how predominantly it's mandatorily exempt from taxation, and it's mandatorily exempt from being audited, and it is mandatorily exempt from being regulated based on the Constitution. That 508 is a type of trust of its own, the type of inter-vivos trust. But compared to an express trust, a 508 trust is known to be limited to simply and strictly religious activities. You can still do business with it, but it has to be religious related. It has to be tied to religious activity one way or another. You can do business with a 508, but it must be tied to religious activity. You can educate people with a 508, but it has to be based on some type of religious instruction and belief. Hence the perfection, which is an express trust. You can either do something religious related or not. Express trust is predominantly what people generally and loosely known as a foreign grantor trust. At some point, you've probably heard that phrase, that word, foreign grantor trust. What does a foreign trust mean? One thinking or saying that, well, I'm a natural person or I did a name change, so I'm foreign to the United States, is not sufficient. Does the trust itself still interface with other entities within the enclaves of the United States? Most people don't even know what the word foreign means as it pertains to specific subject matters. When it comes to the matter of taxation, which everyone tries to avoid, which, by the way, if we're not clear yet, tax avoidance is actually a legal strategy. Tax avoidance is legal. Tax evasion is not. When the opportunity arises, we'll speak about that. According to the IRS manual, and the IRS manual breaks it down to you word for word that, look, you can legally avoid tax. In fact, you're supposed to avoid tax. They tell you, but you're not supposed to evade it. But ultimately, in summary, the difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance is that with tax evasion, you snitching yourself that you made a specific amount, which triggers a taxable event based on your voluntary confession. But you don't satisfy the taxation of what you've triggered. Tax avoidance, on the other end, is you avoid qualifying for it. And there are many intricacies that goes into qualification of tax. And this is one of them. If you really comprehend this effectively, you can correct your previous tax returns to make it reflect as foreign activity rather than domestic, even if there was some type of earning of the US dollar. 26 USC 7701. What is a foreign trust? You want to legally avoid taxation? You want to actually engage in certain activities, not qualify for taxes? Listen very carefully. What we're looking for is A31. We're going to dust off all the misconception, all the vagueness, all the speculation of what this term foreign is, of what estate is, or what trust is. 26 USC 7701 A31. Foreign estate or trust. This word estate is synonymous with the basic rights that were preserved within the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effect. This word effect and this word estate, exact same thing. No difference. Estate just means your interest. Effect means interest. Estate means interest in something physical or not physical. Estate specifically refers to interest in things that are not physical. Effect, estate, same thing. Your state constitutions further even tells you certain things about a state. At Illinois, now in your respective state, you will see this synonymous word for word verbiage. Illinois is in Article 2 Bill of Rights, subsection 11. No conviction shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture of her estate. Whatever it is that you have an interest in that you can't quite physically touch, no one can come to you and say, all right, you're guilty of one thing or the other. Either the taxation, either the harming someone else, whatever it is someone said you've done, conviction. It shall not corrupt the natural ebbs and flow of your interest in something you can't quite physically touch, or that you can physically touch. And the substitute term for estate is also effect. Person, property, and effect, same thing. Summarized into this term, estate. Person, properties being physical things, effect being non-physical things, aka incorporeal things. Estate being a combination of physical and non-physical. When you see the word person, properties, and effect, all these three things, it's the same thing as this one word, estate. And your respective state constitution will tell you that if anyone says you're guilty of something or that you're liable for something, it will not affect your interest. And those things that you can have rightful interest and ownership in, that you can't quite physically touch. Corruption of blood is referring to inheritance. It has a lot to do with your ability to have interest of ownership to your children. Forfeiture of estate and corporal properties, effects being your paycheck. Forfeiture of estate, corporal property being your right to own a trust based on the right of association. The right of association is entertained in the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The free exercise of what? Religion. Belief or not, as vague as it sounds, that is exactly what right of association is. And it's been determined many times over that that itself is right of association. Freedom of association, according to the First Amendment Encyclopedia. Freedom of association, unlike the rights of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition, is a right not listed in the First Amendment but recognized by the court as a fundamental right. There are two types of freedom of association. Two types of freedom of association: the right to expressive association and the right of intimate association. The First Amendment protects the right to associate and the right to not associate. So there are certain rights that exist within all these amendments that most people don't see on its face, but it's right there. If you have the right to freely exercise something, then you have the right to do it in a manner that fits you. And part of that manner is how you associate yourself to it, because you have the ability to be free. The ability to be free simply means you can do it by being part of it, or do it by not being part of it. And that is an important part of trust, tied into the Ninth Amendment, where certain rights shall not be construed or denied by the enumeration of this Constitution, because it's retained by you, the people. Your right to association is your right to create a trust of yours, your right to preserve the integrity of your state. That is the foundational principles behind trust. Because when you have a trust, you have a grantor, beneficiary, trust protector, trustee, and other third-party authorized representatives that you assign based on your board of trustee. On the YouTube page, we've posted a video about the delegation of authority of each parties, where the board of trustee is the legislature, the trust protector is the judicial department, the grantor is the president, and the beneficiary is we, the people. That itself is a form of association, because you're gathering people to associate themselves into a body politic, to exercise an intent based on how willing they are and based on what they're capable of, meaning what they know and the limits of what they know, which would be based on their designation. If one can manage to actually get the intricacies of this, one will begin to see why certain grants only exist for express trust. The complete 30 minutes video is on the patron page. Shout out to my patrons, and best of luck to everyone else watching it on YouTube. Take care and best of luck.